Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thanks again for coming out. We'll start with item number 1, approve the agenda, make any additions, deletions, or corrections. I have several, a list here. Number 1, we're gonna remove from the bills, from the claims, the Meyer Chiropractic bill, move that to G1, which will be new business G1. We're gonna add to L2, which is the attorney's report, minor subdivision. We're gonna move to the attorney's minor subdivision, the issue behind the police clerk, to the attorney's report. Okay, discuss that. And we're gonna move the co-section to L3. We'll add item I-2 under administrator's report, number 2. We're gonna clarify the administrator's authorization to approve petition and waiver agreements. We're gonna add the engineer's report, J1C, to clarify, engineer's estimate of probable costs, construction costs for 16th Street Northeast. So that's the cost estimate. And we're gonna add the J2, which is the engineer's report, letter of intent from MnDOT on the Highway 57 project. We got some information like that letter is in front of everybody under test. We're gonna add F6, which is old business, calling a public hearing for vacation of 8th Avenue Southeast on November 22nd. We have to add that because we have to have 2 meetings of notice before that meeting, so this will help satisfy that. Okay. Teresa, anything else?
No.
Dan? Good? No, we covered it.
Good.
Doug?
Was Meyer Chiropractic something you added here later?
Oh, it was in the consent agenda under the bills to be paid. I'm removing that one and putting it on our new business for some discussion.
Okay.
Before we pay it.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, anything else from anybody? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Doug. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, the consent agenda. Everything's there. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion.
Thanks, Doug. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Lonnie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Visitors to the council, we have none. And then we're on to public forum. Janice, you turned yours in first, so do you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
Janice Borgstrom Durst,
Address, please.
401 3rd Avenue Northwest.
Thank you.
That's why I filled out the card. I wanted to bring a suggestion to the council concerning the water tower. I saw in the paper that the city was wanting the Historical Society to donate the monies that they have in a restricted fund to the city. And I guess I'm thinking, has the council considered donating the Water Tower Park to the Dodge County Historical Society? They own properties. They do well with them if you've been over to the museum in Manorville. I'm thinking that it might be a win-win for both of you. You would get that off your list. Park and Rec would have a little more time and monies to possibly fix the entryway into the pool. I don't know if anybody's noticed, and we've noticed when we walk to the fair, that that's in need of repairs. starting to crumble from the bottom up. And obviously the West Park, something needs to be done for some sort of visitor seating. And I know that you've had to subcontract your mowing for the cemetery, so you would have more time, more money to put into other projects. And I guess that's what I wanted to suggest.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Janice. Barb.
Barb Pike,
And your address, please.
211 8th Avenue Northwest,
Thank you.
Gaston. I'm sure you're all very tired of hearing about the old stone water tower, but I just wanted to say that I've been, and I was not aware of Janice's proposal, so I will not address that, I guess, right at this point. But I'm really concerned about the breakdown in communications that have come about regarding the old stone water tower. We originally worked for over 4 years with the city, the State Historical Society, Dodge County Historical Society, and the school district, all working in cooperation together. We gathered together all the money, over $300,000, had a really nice project. The tower has become a landmark for the city through the years. They use it on their logos, and it was well known. It's well known throughout the whole country because we got donations from Florida, we got donations from Arizona, California. We got donations from all over the country to restore the water tower. And so now I'm just really sad to see that this is all falling apart in the last, I don't know, few months, whatever, it's been a year, whatever. And like I said, I just feel bad that this has come about in the last, recently, because it's worked well. This agreement has worked well for 20-some years, and I don't know why it has to go away, why we can't just all get back together and work for this historic site in the city of Gaston. Thank you all for your time and for your efforts throughout the year.
Thanks, Barb.
Thanks, Barb. That's all I had for public forum. Okay, we don't have any public hearings tonight. Reports. We're gonna go right into old business. Number one, Old Stone Water Agreement. Everybody got that in their packet? That was just a draft of something that was proposed, I guess. So the question is, do we want to continue an agreement or not? I guess that's the first question.
I've got a copy of the old agreement, is that what you're talking about?
Oh, there's kind of a draft, supposedly.
Of a new one.
Right, but,
I guess I'd just like to say we've got an old contract here that I think we've heard worked well for over 20 years. It seems to be a bit of a power struggle right now. I think that's what the problem is. I'd like to make a motion to keep the existing contract in place.
okay. What does that say?
Well, I was gonna kinda say the same thing with Doug here, that this thing has served it well. I mean, if you read this, it's pretty simple. I don't know if you guys, Dan, have you seen this?
I haven't read it.
Lonnie, have you seen this existing
Yes.
contract? I don't know, Dana, this one's the one that's been expired. If you want to browse, it's just the one page. The Historical Society, which I think everybody knows that I am involved with, also has been kind of taking it under their wing. Linda Davis is really that strong in it. And I don't see anything in the original agreement that really needs to be changed besides just maybe some verbiage of when the restoration was done to where it has turned into a maintenance issue. So, and I guess my one question is, what is the driving factor for changing this agreement? No one said given me any reason of why it needs to be changed.
For one thing, I got a call from a member of the Historical Society today, and they said most of the members don't want anything to do with it. So it seems like there's kind of an issue with the Historical Society. I mean, this is just a small group, correct?
Well,
I'm not gonna tell you.
then it's the same thing as not signing the complaint that we turn in here. I don't know why you're bringing it up, because I don't give any validation to that.
Okay, but if it was
It
on
is, I
your
mean-
side, you would validate it. I just think it's time to move on. And wasn't the original contract supposed to be null and void after so long?
That was the agreement with Minnesota Historical Society, will expire in January of 2018. This particular agreement had a clause, referring to, this agreement may be amended or terminated following due notice and review by all parties here too.
But I go back to the question I asked, what is the driving force to terminate this agreement?
Lack of communication, lack of official communication from, Dodge County Historical Society. The city attorney and I visited them in July of 2016, provided them with a complete accounting of what our activity had been, even let them know that we were gonna be restoring the lighting at the water tower, provided them with a billing, per the schedule outlined in the agreement with them, and received no official communication in regard to the, invoice that was presented to them. Then, the mayor appointed a member to the Old Stone Water Tower Committee. That committee has not met in this year. And I believe that the agreement states that, let's see, that the Old Stone Water Tower Committee will assume and be responsible for the planting of flowers and other plants around the facility. And I am aware that activity was taking place, even though the Old Stone Water Tower Committee had not met. So there's been a complete lack of, communication in an official capacity from Dodge County Historical Society.
So the root of this whole thing is communication.
Yes, absolutely.
Communication or lack of, or misunderstandings, or whatever it
Absolutely.
might be, right?
Yep.
I mean, is it a possibility from the city standpoint that we can get together at the same table and figure it out?
Following the motion made at your previous council meeting regarding the need to come to an agreement with Dodge County Historical Society, I reached out to their executive director and scheduled a meeting for 9 a.m. on the Friday, maybe the first Friday in October, and I later received a phone call from him informing me that he was not allowed to meet with me.
Well, I can rebut that. Don, would you like to speak to that?
Well, yes, it wasn't so much
State your
what.
state your name and your.
Oh, Donald Westfall, Executive Director, Dodge County Historical Society. Well, it wasn't really so much I wasn't allowed to, but, our board president wanted to be part of that too.
With
With that meeting, and then when I conveyed that to the city administrator, she decided not to have the meeting.
And that is true, and that's also based on some information regarding conflict of interest of the party in question.
And you're secretary last time,
and not to sit down and talk to somebody. I don't care.
No, not to sit down and talk, I mean, just
I
in general.
understand that.
just in general. So, here's the thing. Is there a time that we could get everybody involved around the same table and figure it out? Because I'm with Barb, I'm tired of hearing about it. And I'll vent my frustrations now. I've spent more time on the old stone water tower than I have the budget in the last 3 weeks.
Well,
And
try
that-
to catch up with me, because I wake
I mean,
up in the morning.
that's very,
And that's wrong. I mean, it's wrong.
Right, so I'm trying here really hard, I'm not gonna blame anyone, I'm just gonna ask, is there a time that we can get, if the historical society says, we want these 2 or 3 people present, and the city says, we want these 2 or 3 people present, and they're all gonna get around the table and figure it out. Because it is a historical landmark, we wanna preserve it, there's nobody in the room that says we don't wanna preserve it. That's the end goal, we wanna preserve our history and make sure that it's there. I think everybody in the room could agree to that. And Teresa, I've talked to a lot of city administrators around the state of Minnesota. Teresa loves preservation. She went on vacation to look at grass huts in Nebraska or something like that in the plains because she thought that was neat. I thought that was kind of boring. But I mean, so I think we have people in place on both sides who want the same end goal, and we just need to get the communication back out there in front. So I'm gonna ask that the Historical Society, figure out tonight who you want at this meeting. The city will figure out tonight who we want at the meeting, and we'll get around the table and we'll figure it out. Is that fair to everybody involved? Because we're spending way too much time on something that everybody has the same end goal. We all want the same outcome. We all want the stone water tower to be visible in the city of Casson. It's important to our history, it's important to our future, we want to preserve it. I don't think there's anybody involved that says, no, let's go have a backhoe swing and hit it on the corner when they're doing the street, knock it over and get rid of it, we won't have to worry about it. I don't think anybody wants that. But we need to have an agreement that we can both abide by and go the next 20 years and not worry about it. So is that possible?
Yeah, we tried, so yes, it's possible.
Okay, so, is it possible?
Oh, absolutely. I
Okay.
scheduled a meeting immediately.
So we're gonna forget about anything that happened in the past, past is the past. We're gonna preserve the water tower, and we'll worry about going forward, what we're gonna do going forward, and forget about everything that's been done and said in the past. It doesn't matter, because it's past, we can't do anything about it. Once it's said, it's done, and let's move on and get this put to bed. We have other bigger issues to worry about in this city besides that. Not that it's not important, there's just other things that we need to be spending our time on as a council. I'm sure the Historical Society would like to spend their time on something besides just the water tower, there's other properties.
No, it's pretty important right now. So
It is right now,
so
but the city administrator has other things to do right now that.
Well, then that would lead to me to ask then, we have an agreement in place.
Right.
So we're gonna abide by this agreement right now, correct? We have this in
Well,
place. This is
Well,
in
I'd say
place.
we just hold off on any agreement until we can sit down and discuss.
There you go.
This is the
Because-
agreement, this
No,
is the
but
agreement that
we-
is in place,
but
it
we're
hasn't
not-
been discussed to not have it, it's still in place.
Yeah, but we
So
can still
here's-
table it.
Let me finish. This is still in place. So if there is something curating that needs to be done, it should be able to be done. Does everybody know what curating means?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that this is still in place, because it's.
Actually, there is. Might wanna ask Teresa if she thinks it's still in place.
Yeah, I did actually, after I received no official communication from the Historical Society, I did send them a letter and let them know that based on the fact that there had been no official communication, I considered that the agreement had been terminated. They
So-
were not abiding by it.
So now we have
Yep,
our city administrator
yep.
breaking our agreements.
But,
I'm managing
but,
your
wait a
agreement.
minute.
No,
No,
you
Coy,
got no way around
let
it.
me talk.
Go, you got the floor.
If the Historical Society would have followed through, there would have been no issue. That seems to be the whole issue right from the very start. They don't follow through. I'm not arguing. You ask my wife, we go to so many historical places in this country, it's unreal. I have more county books, historical books, than anybody I think put together in this room. I'm all for history.
But right now.
But you have to follow through with what's asked of you to do. That's all I'm saying. And it hasn't happened. the hydrant at the water tower. If you guys would have followed through, there wouldn't have been any issue. There would have been a hydrant there. But it's just nonstop, not following through. That's all I'm saying.
There seem to be some emails that kind of confuse things on that issue. That'll be another one we bring up
But I
sometime.
mean, it was on videotape. It was on tape.
It was, but there was also email sent the next morning.
Yes, about following through on the second part of the mayor's motion, that the two parties
Depending on what
should
you
meet.
knew, you could take them a different way. I read.
Well, I knew that the
You
mayor.
did, but some of the people that got the email didn't.
But that doesn't mean that I sent an improper email.
Did I say you sent one?
Well, you said it was gonna be a discussion, things seem to be pointed at me right now.
I'm just asking for you to please follow through. That's all I am asking for.
Are you saying to follow through on communications, or the work of curating, or the work at the park?
You've been doing that, great. Just communication. When something is brought up or voted on here, and approved with stipulations, it needs to be followed through to the letter so we can proceed.
If
That's-
it's approved here at the council meeting, I don't know of anything that was approved at the council meeting that we didn't follow through on. And
There-
as far as following through, I'd just like to read just a sentence,
Sure.
couple sentences here from, the Historical Society minutes of July 21st, 2016. Ms. Coleman and Ms. Lamp were at the meeting, and, we talked about the water tower and talked about other things besides the agreement. But she told us that they were going to reword the agreement. That agreement was never meant to be terminated. It had no termination date on it for a reason. And that's because the people who restored the tower wanted everyone to work together, and the Historical Society to be involved along with the city in caring for the tower. So there was never a termination date, and that was the way it was meant to be. But she wanted to reword the agreement because there's some rewording in there about restoration. The restoration is done, it's completed. From now on, it's maintenance and curation. So she said that they were gonna work on rewording the contract, and they would get back to us. And I offered my help since I've been involved with the water tower and rejuvenation of the park and the open tours that we've had. And my help wasn't needed. No one said yes or no, but I was never contacted. And it was left that the city of Casson will keep the Historical Society updated. So we waited for a year to hear from the city on rewording of the contract. We never heard anything. And in June, we got a letter that said, they were gonna terminate the contract. There was no rewording or negotiating or anything like that. It was just gonna be terminated. And we got that letter not in time for the June meeting. And 30 days later, another letter comes saying it's over, you know, basically turn in your keys and so forth. So, the Historical Society doesn't have a paid staff to follow through on things the next morning after a meeting. And if we don't get things by our monthly meeting, it's very hard for us to communicate and get something back, you know, within a week or 2 weeks even, because we wait until the next meeting to discuss that business. So it isn't a matter of what we follow through on or not, it's kind of a matter of timing and so forth. So I just wanted to say that we have been diligent in taking care of the park and trying to honor all the hard work that Barb and all those people did 20 years ago to restore the tower, and we would like to keep that agreement in place so that we can help the city watch over the tower also. So I don't know if there's any other questions about something we didn't follow through on. As far as the new water committee, Melissa Ferris is on that committee, and Melissa and I met. We met on the porch of her house and talked about things, and I asked her if she had any ideas or wanted to be doing any other kind of plantings or anything else with the water tower, and she said no, she really didn't. And I dropped off the old agreements and contracts with Melissa so that she'd kind of come up to speed on what's been going on and what was the history of the tower. So beyond that,
Linda and I had an informal meeting.
I was just gonna ask.
It was not
It wasn't a
informal or
formal
official.
meeting.
She asked if I had any thoughts on the tower. I said, no, I think this is better saved for having at an official meeting, which has not been called. And we did briefly, that is what happened, Linda. We discussed it, I complimented you on how well the park looked, all the work that you've done. You do remember that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that the plants
being at
looked
your
very
house,
good.
yeah.
I complimented you on all of those things. But as far as discussing the official agreement, I said this is something that should be discussed in an official water tower committee meeting. It's not
Discussing-
something that you and I could discuss and make any conclusions or suggestions
What, on
to.
agreement?
On that agreement
Oh,
that you brought
no.
to my house. But
No,
that's
I
what you-
gave it to you for your information,
Yes.
I mean, not for us to discuss or rewrite or
Okay.
anything, no. I'm just talking about the work on the park that you and I
Yeah,
talked about.
and I said it looked great.
And if you wanted an official meeting, or anybody did, call one. I mean, I'm used to working there on my own, so I'm open to an official meeting.
And we did have that meeting at the library,
Mhm.
you and Teresa and Barb and I, on September 7th. And the order in which letters were sent from the city to the Historic Society was laid out by Teresa.
Mhm.
You denied receiving the letters, but then you said you found them on the photocopier, if I remember
I
correctly.
found the first one on the scanner, yes, I
Okay.
did.
And the gist of that meeting seemed to be that one of the biggest problems with the existing agreement was what constitutes curation, what constitutes restoration, and who was responsible for paying for what portion of what work. And that is something that seems to be the essence of the disagreement.
It may be, it may be.
That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, everybody. I'll go back to what I said before. If we can get people back around the same table, have the same conversations, figure it out what's bothering who, and resolve it.
And back to my statement is, this is still in place.
If you'd like to make a motion to make that back in place.
It hasn't been, she can't terminate our
That's
agreements.
true, we would have to.
She overstepped her bounds by doing that. She does not have the authority to do that. This is still in place.
I
You have the
did-
authority to do it, but
She cannot enter
us.
into a contract for us, and she cannot dispose of the contract.
She can recommend to the council.
Which she
to
has
terminate,
not
Which she
done.
hasn't done yet.
At all.
I did work with your city attorney, before both letters.
Maybe you need to come to the city before we start spending more money on the attorney again and say, but do you wanna do this? I mean, just bleeding and hemorrhaging money again.
Okay. Back to this.
This is still in place.
Is that correct? From a legal standpoint? Or do we need to make it back in place? Do we wanna have it back in place before a meeting?
It hasn't been taken out. Hasn't
I
been.
would, whether or not there's an actual agreement, it's subject to litigation. I mean, I could give you my opinion about it, but if the other side says that they wanna litigate the issue and they believe that it's still in place, I mean, it's, notice has been given by the city. You know, I would say it's a bit of a gray area whether or not it's in place. I mean, it could be argued by both sides.
Sure. Give me a second here.
One.
Just kidding. Gotta think before I talk.
You do have a motion on the floor.
Doug made it.
Correct.
I'll stand with the motion then.
Okay.
Keep this in.
Forgot about the motion. Can you repeat your motion? Just,
I made a motion to keep the old stone water tower, well, I called it the existing contract in place.
Okay.
It's existing.
the contract, the 20-year contract that we had before.
20-year
It's
contract.
been in place for 20 years.
1987 contract.
1997 contract. Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Do we hear a second?
first, don't throw that stone.
I'm gonna second it, and then I'll have a little further discussion, or a statement. I'm gonna second it so that we have something in place till the parties involved meet to determine whether we wanna stay under the same exact thing, or what each party would like to change, and come out with a 2017 contract to replace the 1997 contract. It might look exactly the same, there might be one paragraph different, there might be 20 paragraphs different. You might add paragraphs, you might take some out, do what you want. Then bring it back to the council for approval from our end, and the historical society to their board for their approval, and we'll go from there.
As a member of the Water Tower Committee, may I make a recommendation?
Sure.
That you put some sort of a time restraint
I
on
was
how long?
just gonna get to that.
Thank you.
And I would like to see this be a 2017 agreement. So, is that fair enough? Is that long enough or too long? Or do you want it to be a October of 2017 agreement? I think by the end of the year. We can have this hammered out so that we do not have to worry about it in 2018, basically. So, I would like to second the motion, but
I'll second that.
to amend the motion to.
Oh, whoa.
Amend the motion that you retain it for
I made the motion,
2007,
he
to have it
seconded
done
it.
by 2007, the end of 2017.
And if it's.
I think you need to vote on the motion that you made and seconded, and
Okay.
then make a motion specific to
The timeframe.
what you want to have accomplished.
Okay, so we'll have a motion on the floor to continue the 1997 agreement. And I have a second. Any other discussion?
But there would be, you're saying there's no extra stipulation in there?
Right, this is
Not yet.
just that motion.
I'll add that in a second.
That was just
Just that motion.
that motion right now, and we'll come back with another motion.
So, any other,
So, I just wanna be clear, so the second motion would supersede the first? If you add all the stipulations, or would you have to remake a motion with all the stipulations? And then second it?
yeah, we'd have
To make it
For
legal?
the timeframe.
No, he added all the stipulations, and they're saying you can't put that in there, cause Doug's original motion was to keep it plain blank.
And Chris seconded it.
I withdraw my second.
And then
Withdraw your
during
first.
discussion.
I withdraw my
added a
motion.
bunch of
Okay.
stuff. Okay.
That's what I
Okay.
wanted to make sure.
Withdraw the motion.
I'll make a
Alright.
motion, sorry, Doug, then you can second.
Okay, withdraw the motion, okay.
I'm gonna make a motion that we continue with the 1997 agreement for the remainder of no longer than the end of 2017, so the parties can get together to come up with a new agreement that will last hopefully in perpetuity, and we'll never have to have this discussion again. That is my hopes. So by the end of 2017, to have something complete. So that's the motion.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any other discussion?
And if it doesn't get done by the end of 2017,
Then it'll be back on our agenda for the first meeting in 2018, to see what the heck happened.
just making sure it's,
Mr. Negative.
well,
Okay,
the way everything's going, then
Any other discussion on that topic? Okay. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 3-1 with Coy abstaining. And thank you, there's just really wacky things that happen in the city and different things, and I'll tell you, my eyes have been open, and I've learned a lot in the last 9.5 months about things and people and contracts and agreements and not agreements. So, thank you for everybody, their input, and let's get something hammered out that's good for everybody. And main thing is good for the city of Castle.
on that note, on that committee that you're gonna form, you know, that means you would say you're gonna have some council members meeting with the Dodge County, or city members. I would suggest that the president and council member Borgstrom, he's gonna have to choose which side. He can't represent both, or not be on the discussion of it at all, because it's two conflicting interests. You're not only the president of the Dodge County Historical Society, but you're a council member, so.
I'm also not an idiot either.
No,
I mean,
but
so
we,
I can-
legally, we have to look at it in the
But I
best
can put
interest.
my opinion in just as I did tonight, if I won't vote on anything, but, I mean, I'll be there, trust me.
But then you can't be a voting member of it,
Exactly,
how-
kinda like just now.
so.
But like I said, I'm not an idiot.
But then, can you give an opinion if he's not
So would you like me to be strictly on the Dodge County Historical Society side? Or do you want me to do the best with what I think is both? I mean, I've lived here for a few
Ever.
decades. I mean, I'm sitting here because I want what's best for the city, and I'm with the Historical Society because I wanna see what's, I mean,
I'm just looking at it,
I'm not-
devil's advocate is what you always say, and this is a devil's advocate. Once you do this, what's the next one, and the next one? You're gonna have people on one side or the other saying it ain't right.
or I could have everybody saying win-win,
We can, but
right, Chris? Ain't that how you look at it?
I'm just throwing that out there,
I don't.
Could I ask when the committee meetings are,
For,
the water tower committee?
Ask Mel, she must know when the official meetings are.
When they're called.
Oh,
Well, that's only 2 people.
right.
That's only 2 people.
Concern,
There's 3 people on the committee.
two.
You, Linda, and then the city administrator.
No.
No, no, no,
No,
no.
not on the
No,
committee.
there's supposed to be
Not on
an
the
ex
committee.
officio person from the Minnesota
Okay.
Historical Society, I believe is in the agreement, there's supposed to be 3.
How do you find out when they're called?
Well, we're gonna work on that with the
Oh,
agreement.
okay.
I think that'll be one of my
I think
input
that's
things
part
from
of
the
the
things
problem
is,
is that.
we're gonna work on the
nobody knows.
communication and make sure we
Yeah,
set up a structure for
communication
communication.
is null and void.
Okay. Okay, all right, thank you, everybody. Can we move on to number 2? Okay, number 2, fee schedule. Okay, I had Administrator Coleman send out that communication a week and a half ago, so I wanted to kind of break the budget up into pieces, and this is one of the things I wanted to just have you look at before the meeting. If you have any suggestions for next year, that type of thing we're looking at. I understand Nancy's getting some information together for us on some specific things as far as building permits and that type of thing, but it's not quite ready yet.
Yeah, actually, we're gonna bring Brandon into the conversation,
Okay.
because it may be some things on the building permit side, we should really be looking at the zoning permit side, so we're gonna look at our engineering costs and see how they line up with the zoning permit, development agreement, building permits, which aren't necessarily engineering, well, they're a separate firm, but we need to go kinda deep and wide on it.
So you're gonna get us the information on the, specifically on the building permit stuff for next time. So just, if anybody on the council, do you have anything on the fee schedule besides the building permits, or some input on that they could use to get us back that information?
I've got kind of a bottom line on building permits for Byron, Pine Island, Dodge Center, Stewartville, and Casson. The actual cost that it costs someone to buy the building
Yeah, I was
permit.
gonna say, it's gotta be something simple as getting comparisons from other cities and seeing what everybody, the communities are doing. I mean, if the one community's at 2,000, we're at 10,000, no one's gonna wanna build here.
Right.
I mean, it's just as easy, as simple as getting comparisons.
It's kind of a two-step process. One, we wanna make sure we're covering our costs.
Exactly.
The first goal, which that's the way we raised them last year, the spring. And then we wanna make sure we're competitive with the communities around us.
Right.
So that's the information that we're getting. So is there anything else specific as far as?
My only question is if Brandon's being involved, if Brandon looked at it, he knows I'm gonna ask this, is this is outside of your normal scope of fees, right? So if you get 8 hours involved with working with these fees, we're gonna get billed from Brandon, right?
No, we meet weekly
To go over permit fees?
to go over whatever's happening with engineering, and Brandon wants to go over with us how engineering should be built out,
This is yours?
so that we can understand what should be billed with the zoning permit.
Yeah, associated with the zoning
Right.
permit, and when you get to a development agreement, separate than building permit.
Right,
That kind of
that's
be
like
building-
part 3, but we're gonna work through the
Correct.
first 2 parts with Brandon. So we're gonna create a complete picture of what the city's costs are and where where we could be covering those costs and where we're currently covering those costs, which would go to what I understood from you, Chris, was that you wanted to see that what we were charging for building fees was consistent with what it was costing us
Correct.
for
On a
building.
P&L basically on that.
Right, right,
that
which we
category.
have worked on, though it seems that we're covering costs with building permits that we maybe should be covering with the zoning permit.
so we could lower the building permit,
Right,
the zoning permit.
if we could raise the zoning permit. So having the discussion with Brandon about collecting fees here will be important to the conversation about what can we do with our building permit
Right,
fees.
we wanna make sure we're collecting the fees
Yeah.
to cover the
Yeah.
costs in the correct
Yeah.
area.
And that's with
Because
our
you could look
30% rate
Right,
cut.
we wanna make sure that that's in the right place, and it may
Yeah.
have been that that's
Exactly.
covering some of the engineering costs
Right.
and the zoning, when it's
Right.
not really building permit area, it should have been on the zoning side. So kind of
Right.
align the fees where they need to be,
Yeah.
and then secondarily,
Exactly.
then come down to what we need to do to cover our costs.
Yeah.
How does that compare to our neighbors, and does the city wanna subsidize some of those permit fees by lowering them to meet the neighbors or not?
Because some of our neighboring towns' permits might be cheaper than ours, but their zoning fees might be higher.
Right.
We gotta look at,
Right.
you'd have to look at apples for apples on theirs to ours too, make sure.
So we're trying to collect the data to get accurate data for the right
Right,
cost sharing.
right, exactly.
And you gotta remember, as a town, we're the winner when we sell a building permit, you know,
Right.
because,
Right.
so.
Okay, so does that make sense to everybody? So anybody, is anything else on the fee schedule that you noticed that we should be looking at?
I just, like the roofing construction, you've got one bulk. I mean, if I've got a garage that's 15 square, it's gonna cost $100 for the permit, and if my house was 50 square, it's the same price?
Yeah, but it's the same inspection, the guy's gonna come twice, once or twice, so it's the same whether it's a 50 square or a 10 square, he's still got a
Trip charge.
trip charge, and that you gotta put into that, that's why it's.
Right, and it is actually the smaller permits where we are not covering our costs. So the smaller the permit fee, the more that we're picking up a portion of the cost of the inspections and reviews. So we've looked at a few examples where we collected $50, it cost us $120. We collected $75, it cost us $154. So the smaller the permit fee, the more we're out of whack with what it's really costing to, cover those inspections.
Well, you don't have any of those examples of where we're losing.
Yes, we're working on it.
That's what we're gonna get from Yancy.
Yep, yep,
the next
we're working
meeting.
through that, yep.
Any other points in the?
Just like your ball field rental, you get the field for a day for $30 for what we have, and then the ball field maintenance is $15 an hour. I mean, if it was clerical, it'd be more than that. I just don't know where we come up with $15 an hour for maintenance, where that'd be charged or.
Right, yeah, and that's Ron, that comes right from Park and Rec, so maybe the next park board meeting, see if we can get fees on the agenda for that. Cause you're on the park board, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and just see where they get those numbers from. I guess it's kind of probably just an arbitrary number they picked out over the years, that it's $30 for ball
It
field.
just seems what we spend on a field every week, you know,
Right.
you mow it, you keep lime on it, you grade them, and then people can rent them, and then it all has to be done over again for $30.
Plus the $15 per hour. But
The $15 and the $30 a day, I don't know where they balance that.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe that, if you don't mind, take that to
Yep.
park board and see where they set those at and how and why and everything. Anything else on the fee schedule that jumped out at you?
Dodge County Ice Arena, down to winter. I'm sure it's gotta be the adult league. It says 1,900 per team, 8 teams max.
Okay.
At 1,900 per league. 8 teams max, so it's 200 a team.
I read that as $1,900 a team.
That's a pretty profitable, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's.
Well, you gotta try to get people there and you're.
Can you ask Holly that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
On the Dodge County Ice Arena?
Yes.
Under adult league, it says 1,900 per team,
yes,
maximum 8 teams.
I think it's just
Yes.
probably a typo, because I played in the adult league.
Could be 190 a team, cause the one above it says 100, well, that's 175 an hour.
right,
I
so
think just-
teams would have ice time for games and practice.
That might be
And
right.
Zamboni and,
Yep.
it's,
Maybe it is.
it's it's pretty expensive.
Well, no, just.
But I don't know.
Mhm.
I just don't remember when I joined up.
I will
being 200.
clarify with him, it's my understanding though that that is the case.
We're looking at the ice rates, and it was the 100 to 175 an hour.
Yeah, it could be, I guess, now that I think back to it.
Seems
Okay.
like a lot though, when you
Yeah,
look at it. but
yeah. Thank
How
you.
much is on a team? How many people? I don't know.
10, 12.
10, 12, so.
Okay.
What, on household use only, it's underwater, what do they initially charge you for a meter besides on that, and then a $3.89 per month?
I believe that the meters are currently running $4.25 $4.25.
Depends on the
So
size.
it takes a while
Oh,
to.
depending
A
on the
1 inch
size.
meter is
Like that.
$4.25, a 3/4 inch meter is $3.25.
And then the school hydrant, is that one just a fire hydrant standing there, or is that something they use?
Yes, but I believe that they're moving that into their concession area or, trying to weatherize that right now.
It's out behind the concession stand,
Mhm.
it's outside, and they're gonna try to move that into the building that has heat.
So that can be metered.
So-
Currently unmetered water, we're trying to get metered.
That's.
Oh, so it's in the
Unmetered.
process of being metered,
Yeah.
it's unmetered at that,
Yeah.
and then the fairgrounds and,
Yeah,
$50.45.
Yep.
Is that what they're watering the track with?
you know what, that's what they're washing cows with.
Oh,
So, we do have a challenge there, and we are working, that's like my number one priority, and Charlie knows it, to get that water metered at the fairgrounds.
although if they're paying $50 a month, 1 or 2 weeks a year they're washing cows there, they're probably paying pretty good for their water anyway. I
It would be
I had a
in their
question
best
on it.
interest if it was metered then.
Yeah.
In the high school, that was part of the deal with that sewer that just extended over the road when they closed 16th, right, that they put a meter on, that's correct, that
Mhm.
water.
Yep,
So,
yep.
anything else that jumped off the page tonight?
You know, I think one thing that I had not made the adjustment on the schedule yet is that 8% water increase.
Okay.
That's part of your preliminary budget, so I will do that.
All right, anybody else on the fee schedule? Okay, we'll get back next meeting with the spreadsheet as far as the costs and where they're at and
Yep.
where we can be. And then,
Yep.
if anything else jumps off, you just send a,
Okay.
On to number 3, golf cart time of operation. This is an update to the city ordinance 71.25. I'll just read that for everybody that's here. Motorized golf carts not equipped with headlights and taillights shall only be operated on designated roadways from sunrise to sunset. Motorized golf carts with operational, manufacturer installed, or commercially available retrofitted headlights and taillights shall be permitted to operate on designated roadways. This ordinance shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. This was brought to our attention a few weeks ago, or a few meetings ago, and we had a little discussion about it, but any questions on that? Seems to align with what's.
Does the original ordinance say, like, age and insurance and stuff? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think it did, but I just wanted to clarify
Yeah,
that.
this is just the hours of the
Okay.
operation.
Yeah. and
That's what I thought
um,
it was discussed.
The ordinances, there's a few before that talk about, whether it has to be insured, it has to.
Okay. Yeah, this is just for the times, because before it was pretty restrictive.
Yeah.
You could.
Sunrise to sunset.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so any other questions on that? I'll entertain a motion.
Hold on.
Yep.
I'm just gonna read this. Motorized golf carts not equipped, okay.
Okay, so no lights, sunrise to sunset, with lights, manufacturer installed, commercial, that's up, then within the rules of the rest of the ordinance.
Excellent.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Doug, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries, thank you. On to number 4. Budget discussion. So I just threw it out in the email that I had Teresa send to everybody about a week and a half ago, that I'd just like to bring up, if there's any major issues in the budget, if you wanna just share those with everybody now, so everybody can think about it, and, you know, don't make any decisions tonight, but just kinda throw out, if you have 1 or 2 things that you wanna look at, or more, let's get that out here, or any philosophies, or anything that you have. what I'm gonna try to do is at the next meeting, what I'd like to do is kind of break the budget into 2 or 3 parts. We only have a few meetings left in November to look at it by department. And to say, hey, the next meeting, we're gonna look at the park department, the street department, and the water. And that way, if anybody, any of this, if Charlie or any of the leads, or anybody that are there, wanna come to provide, you know, hey, we're gonna talk about the park budget. You know, it seemed that Charlie or Ronnie would show up to, if we're talking about it and saying yes, no, they would be able to provide us some feedback, or we'd be able to ask them questions on it. A lot of times, we just get the paper of, here's the request, and we gotta play phone tag or email tag back and forth. So if that sounds okay to you guys, to break that up over the next 2 meetings, to have kinda half with the next one, half with the next one, and get those,
Have those staff attend.
staff attend if they want to. I mean,
Okay.
they certainly don't have to, it might be in their best interest to attend.
Okay.
So if that sounds okay with you guys, and if there's anything major now that you wanna get out there, or if you wanna just go on to that meeting, that's fine too, whatever works for you guys.
Couple of, part-time and, what do you call it when you hire a temp? Because I had a question on a couple of them that were budgeted in park. You want me to bring that up with them too?
If you wanna bring it up when we talk with that specific, department, or if you just wanna throw out your idea or thoughts or concerns now, and we got time to chew on it too, if you'd like. That's up, I'll leave that to you.
It's park department, and a couple of different, positions, which I was under the assumption they were handled.
I look at the park area, part-time employees.
Yeah, there was a part-time, and they were ones we did last year for, we had a man out that helped over the overtime from the ice arena, and we had another one out from surgery, and they ended up getting a part-time that works 5 hours a day year-round. But then we had a
Manpower more,
Yeah.
7,500. Page 14 expenditures, on the bottom right of the page, it'll tell you the page number.
Oh, okay, there's a manpower one, 7,500 there. I was questioning that, and then there's another part-time in there.
Okay, so that'll be a good question for Ron or Charlie when they come in.
I just didn't know if, do they call the 5 hour a day, would they be calling that a part-time?
I think that'd be the part,
Would that be
time
the budget?
description, yeah, that's the 5, yeah.
Do you see a part-time one there, Ron? Part-time employees, but that's too low on the top line.
Yeah, I don't, we'll have to ask how that was shuffled around maybe, because it's the total budget, look at the budget for 17 and then the proposed budget for 18, just a few lines below that for personnel total, is actually $2,000 less than last year, for the proposed budget. So it must have been somewhere else,
I'll get a handle on it here.
because your full-time is down 7,500. So, yeah, so let's circle back with Ron and just get his staffing needs or whatever or what he's got here and see what we can do. Anything else you wanna discuss tonight? Good, Dan? Going good? Lonnie? Good?
I just had a question on the police budget. We're at 1.1 million on operation. I looked up Byron's there, they're doing theirs for 340,000. I
Yeah.
thought there's something that we've,
They contract theirs with the county at less hours per.
I understand that, but I mean, 3 times as much. I don't feel 3 times safer when I'm in Casson than what I do when I'm in Byron.
I like the fact that I called, there's gonna be an officer there in seconds instead of 20, 30 minutes. Byron isn't covered in town, they're covered, you know, so there's a service call. If you have an emergency, they might not be there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Well, in their contracts, they will have a certain agreement that they have to police the town so many hours a day, so many hours a week, so many hours a month. They don't just sit there in Olmsted County and take a check and not come out at all.
No, they're there, but it's on and off, when and where.
Well, and even here, you can't guarantee that we're gonna have somebody at every spot, every time something happens and whatever else. I mean, it's the same thing having your train run through the track or the town and hoping that the ambulance can get to one side, the other, police can get to the other side, so.
6:15 the other Saturday morning, I come down Main Street and there's a car up against a tree and there was a sheriff's car there and a highway patrol car there. And I met a white car on Main Street, so.
And I have had talks with the sheriff, just informally, just talked about different things, and kinda, Dodge County has basically said they're not interested in servicing Casson.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we
Yeah,
have
no, I
the
mean-
service, I'm saying, what are we doing wrong? I mean,
Okay.
it costs so much money to have so many people around.
Sure.
I mean, maybe we need to have a look at their, how they staff every day. I mean, are there 5 people on during the day, are there 2 people on during the day? I mean, we've never seen any of that stuff, have we?
You gotta be careful, 'cause they can't give out their hours
They don't
when they're
publish.
gonna be on, 'cause that's giving too much information to the wrong people. Like it or not.
We'll have the
you
police
know.
on the budget, or the budget, for one of the meetings, and we'll invite the chief to come in, so we ask him our questions we need to ask him.
Perfect.
But as far as, I know I've talked to him about publishing their schedule of what officers are what shifts every
And
day.
that's it, is it
No,
hours?
yeah, hours. Yeah.
Hours.
So, we'll ask the chief that, he's doing a schedule. Okay, anything else on the budget tonight? Or if it's all right with you guys, I'll work with some of the different departments, I'll work with Teresa, we'll see which departments we can get in for the first meeting, and the rest of them in the second meeting. Give us a chance to ask some questions, and take the best feedback that we can.
I see Teresa had a statement at the department head meeting that she was looking at just a list of things that you had. Maybe we could be shared in that?
I think you did get the list of things.
Yeah, that was
You
the
got
email I
that.
had her send for me last Monday. They just said we're gonna add the fee schedule, and then they're working on the fee schedule stuff with, building permits.
Oh, that was all it entailed, you mean, the thing you were?
Yeah, that's the stuff,
I didn't
that
know
stuff
if you
there.
had a list you'd found going through here, I just thought,
Oh, I had gone through a long time ago when Nancy first proposed budget, I came in and talked to Nancy, and she pretty much blew me out of the water on a lot of it, 'cause it's illegal what I wanted to do. So, I didn't think that was, I just was using common sense on how we could
you know what I mean, if
spend
there's
money
something
or
you're
whatever.
looking at already, the rest of
Well,
us
the
might
state
have
doesn't let you
some
do
input,
that, and I
so.
said, why not? 'Cause it would make sense, but, yeah, so no, that was my,
I seen that, but
Yeah.
I didn't take that being, what they
Yeah.
were talking about.
yeah, no, I had, yeah, I got shot down. The next one there was part of that email I had Teresa send for me too, was contracts. Everybody's got a copy of that, and that's just
Yeah.
all the different contracts that the city has with different organizations or service agreements, and I just wanna look at that, see if there were any of those that, as we were talking about, it kinda drove this, was the building permit fees and that type of thing. You know, CMS is who we use for that. Is that our only choice? I mean, not that they're doing a bad job, but if we have contracts or things up for bid, that type of thing, I just wanted to be aware of what contracts we currently had, to see if there were places as we're going through the budget that we could save some money. if it makes sense. So that's just there, if you have specific contracts you wanna look at, shoot maybe Teresa an email before the next meeting and we can discuss those individual contracts. I don't think we have to discuss every single contract down there, some of them are pretty boilerplate, obvious, that's the only choice, but and some of them are just agreements we have with cell towers, so that's the contract we have, but we're not gonna change that, so it may come.
You know, just spitballing here, it says like snow hauling, snow removal bid out each year. It would help this, I mean, I know Sean, the portables, are they, is those the only two that are bid out each year? It'd be nice to know if there's other ones in here that are bid out each year, might make it, then
Sure.
you wouldn't have, if they're bid out each year, then obviously we entertain.
We already discussed that,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Well, like Smith Schaefer is bid out every 3 years. It doesn't say it on here, but, I mean, there's.
Well, I'm just saying that if they're bid out, we could add that
Oh.
in another column, so.
So we know,
So,
yep.
yeah, we know that we don't need to really entertain that.
When the
because
time schedule is.
It's put out for other people to be brought in. I mean, it's opened up for bid, so
Yeah.
it isn't like we would need to discuss
Right.
unless we're gonna.
Does that make
eliminate.
sense, Nancy?
Yeah, I mean, there are some, you know, usually when we have contracts expire, we do try to bid them out if we can, you know, like the copier services, or as you know, we did the audit services. Next year, we put out for bid, and usually for a 3-year term, the agency for our insurance, you know, so as we try and
Or maybe
actually
just have
look
the
at it
contract
then.
end date or whatever. I mean,
Well, we can add that information if that helps, but
It's not a lot of work, I mean.
all I was adding is that we do try and look
Oh,
at
yeah.
it when we can.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was just looking for things if while we're doing the budget.
Yep.
If there's things we
Well,
can address
you know,
now.
I know there's some that we probably haven't looked at for quite a while, because we have the same people come.
Sure.
That's a little different than having a contract.
Right. Thank you. Anything else on that? I just wanted that out for everybody so we knew. I was kind of, page and a half is pretty good, number of contracts that we have with the city. Okay, number 6, call public hearing for vacation on November 22nd. Is there any specific language I have to have for that?
No, just a motion to call the public hearing. Is that correct, Melanie? We just need a motion to call the public
Do we
hearing.
have to list the street?
Mhm.
Do we have to list the street that we're vacating?
Well, yes. Yes.
Okay, so
It is 8th.
8th Avenue Southeast. So we're gonna call a public hearing for the vacation of 8th Avenue Southeast on November 22nd.
Perhaps we should say a portion of 8th Avenue,
Yeah.
because we don't wanna vacate the whole.
Okay.
Portion, okay.
The proper portion of 8th Avenue Southeast.
Okay.
That's all we gotta do is state it, we don't have to have a motion, right?
I would, well,
Okay.
a motion to call a public hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll entertain that motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. We have a public hearing on November 22nd.
Okay, and that will be published in the newspaper twice and provided in writing to the adjoining property owners.
Okay, new business, minor chiropractic reimbursement. This stems from, was it 4th Avenue?
100 block of 4th Avenue.
100 block of 4th Avenue. Along that sidewalk is a retaining wall on that property, and when the sidewalk came out, it's kind of a, in my opinion anyway, it's a unique situation, it's not like anything else that we've done on the project. The retaining wall was basically destroyed when the sidewalk came out, because when the city poured that sidewalk 20 years ago, or whenever they did it, they poured it right up on the timbers of the retaining wall, and so it couldn't come out without taking the retaining wall out. So they asked for, you know, are we responsible for all that, or the city, they felt the city should be responsible for all of it because of that purpose, and I, you know, it's not my opinion, you know, to share or whatever the total, I don't think the city should be responsible for all of it. But my opinion, I guess I was gonna entertain that we follow the same guidelines as the assessment, that the city would pay 70% and the property owner would pay 30%. Cause really, it's, in my opinion, it wasn't their problem that the sidewalk was poured on the retaining wall, or up through those timbers.
Just a silly question, is the retaining wall in the easement?
Right away.
Right away, or the easement, you know, there's always a utility easement,
I believe so, because they let them put it there. The city let them put it there years ago. So.
Who poured the sidewalk?
No, but you know what I'm saying, you know, 'cause if you're in an easement, any homeowner knows if they put anything in an easement or business owner, you're responsible for that even if somebody comes back through. You know, I mean, there's that.
I don't know necessarily know if there'd be an easement, because we're talking on the east side, right?
But I mean, there's so many feet, I don't know, that's the only reason I'm
Maybe
asking.
right away, their easement would be in the, more
That's
like
true.
the rear of the lot would be where your
Cause
easement.
you will have some easements in the fronts too, for,
Some, but I don't think
for
we do up
utilities
there.
or, but I just asked. I'm not
What does
saying
Lon
it's-
say? Is he,
Lon would like all of it paid.
what was
Obviously.
our, Brandon, what's your thought on the longevity or the proratedness of the?
Well, on the first comment you guys had about whether it's in an easement or right of way, the wall is in the public right of way. The public right of way there goes almost to his building, it's kind of a goofy situation. So what was the second question, excuse me?
What shape was the wall, the retaining wall in?
Poor.
Poor.
And it was leaning over the sidewalk.
So whose responsibility would it be then if it was to deteriorate and earth fall onto the sidewalk?
Great, and who would be responsible there? I would kind of view it as a private retaining wall in the public right of way.
But I think it all stems from, the city approved him putting that landscaping in that area back then.
Yeah, I didn't dig up what the former
I know,
approval is.
I know.
That's why I said great to start off.
Right.
Other towns will do like a revocable permit to say you can put a wall in the right of way.
Right.
If we revoke your permit, get your wall out of the right of way.
Right.
So, great to say the least.
Any way you look at it, it had to be done to put
Right.
that building where it sits because it's that much lower.
Right.
You know, that lot's up high, so it had to be put there to fit that building there, and then we're looking at the second owner of the building, you know, he isn't the one that put it there.
Right.
So, yeah, hard to say how things went nowadays.
It's kind of a combination of faults.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just one of the, you can look at it a few different ways,
Right.
you know. There's a lot of driveways and sidewalk up through the project that weren't in very good shape, but they're all new now, you know.
Yep.
And I'm sure if you're a business or a homeowner there, that's kind of what you're expecting too. So, I think that's the way Lon thinks of it.
But the only part of the driveway that's new is up to the edge of the right of way. Anything after that, it's up to the.
Unless
Unless they paid
the
for
grade
it.
change difference, they'll come all the way up to wherever and cut your driveway off and make it, you know what I mean? If you had a driveway that was high, you go back as far as you have to make it right, so.
But it isn't a whole driveway, you'd normally.
I say we go for it, 70-30. All you can do is refuse, come and argue.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I think personally, I think 70-30 is fair, how you make that statement, but it's consistent with how we've assessed the rest of the project. So we have some rationale, how do we arrive at 70-30? It wasn't just, we didn't pull a number out of the air and say, well, we think we should pay this and you should pay this. It's the same formula, I guess, in my mind anyway, it's a way to rationalize, how do we come to a number that we said, how do we come to that number? Here's how we came to it. Everything else was 70-30. Any other discussion?
I guess I'm not gonna sit here and throw numbers and start.
I'll make that motion that the cautionary on that is 70-30, 70 city, 30% property owner, consistent with the rest of the project.
I'll second that motion.
And any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I abstain.
Mayor's report, all I have there is a couple different things. In the department head meeting notes, Ron had made a mention in there that the Aquatic Center has won the award for the, correct me if I'm wrong, here, Post Bulletin Reader's Choice Award for Best Pool Aquatic Center in their readership area, southeast Minnesota. So, good congratulations to the Park Department and Josh Mitchell, who ran the facility for the summer, for the second summer. So.
And all their members.
And all the
staff.
people who worked and that type of thing. And I did a little update, the other thing I did this week, is I talked with, the Lions Club on Monday night at their meeting, just gave a city update. I kinda gathered some numbers when I was looking at that department head meeting, and 25,000 people, just shy or just over that, used the aquatic center this year. So we had 25,000 users that came and swam at the pool or were in the aquatic center, paid to get in or had a pass. And the interesting thing is that 20%, 5,800 people from Rochester drove out here and paid cash on a daily basis, their $5 to get in and use the aquatic center. So 20% of the usage of our aquatic center were folks from Rochester. Why is that important? One, people are coming to visit Casson, so we have something that people want to visit, right? You know, the library has tremendous numbers as well, which is incredible. So we have two resources there that the people wanted, we paid for, they voted for the aquatic center. It's accomplishing what it's supposed to do. You know, people in town are able to use it. People from out of town can come in and enjoy something in Casson, but while they're doing that, they're driving by our gas stations, our restaurants, our service businesses, Urbans, that type of thing. So moving into this retail recruitment and business recruitment, these are the numbers they're looking for, or what are our economic generators. They know 6,300 people live here, and they drive in and out of town for work or pleasure every day, but who's coming to town and why, and what are they doing when they're in town? So this is really valuable information, so we're gonna work on, we have the numbers from the library, where people come from, which is also incredible, that, 30% of the people that visit the library aren't from Casson. You know, it's mind-blowing. We're gonna work with, hopefully, the ice arena, when they start having their events for the same thing, how many tournaments do they have from teams out of town, so we can get this data together for these businesses and say, hey, we have a school that brings in 80,000 people a year to different events, and here's what they do. The ice arena, the pool, the library, and use that data to and celebrate our successes. The aquatic center was voted on by the people, they said yes, it's successful, people are using it, people from out of town are coming to see us, so I think it's a positive. So, that's all I had for the mayor's report. Administrator's report.
So many of you know that Dan has served on the board of the Southeast Minnesota League of Municipalities, and he was elected to be their board president for the coming year, so starting in January, correct?
I say it starts now.
Starting now.
Well,
There we go.
They moved it up.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Number 2.
Yes, few meetings ago, the council did approve the form of the petition and waiver agreement to be used on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Avenue project for the folks who needed to make improvements to their sewer lines or their storm drain, connections. And we've sent letters out to the folks who were either undetermined or it was determined that they needed an improvement, and we're starting to get feedback that folks would like to utilize the petition and waiver process. However, without authorization to sign off on that, each one would have to wait for the next council meeting after we received the bid. So we're here to clarify that approval of the petition and waiver would also include authorization for the administrator to sign those as the projects come up and move forward.
Okay. Well, that makes sense to me. We aren't gonna hold up the homeowner or the contractor for a week or 10 days to have us approve it before they can go dig somebody's service in, especially if they're in front of their house already and ready to dig. So, any other questions or comments on that?
No, it makes sense to me as long as it's just for this project, right?
Yep. Yeah, for the petition waiver.
That just brings me to a question there where, in the fees, you had something about some
Discharge.
discharge, and then it was a monthly $100 or something?
No.
So that's if they find them when they're cameraing, I thought that's what it all pertained to, but, okay.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion on the clarification for the authorization to approve the petition and waiver agreements.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Lonnie, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Stan, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. On to, just make sure I got everything. J, engineers report.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. Two items tonight. The first one is the 16th Street Northeast improvements we discussed last council meeting. This is to solicit or apply for a grant application through MnDOT, part of their local road improvement program, to improve 16th Street from the bridge, kind of where the pavement ends now, to the east to County Road 15. This portion of road has been in the city's capital improvement plan, it's in the city's regional transportation plan, it's been in the previous comp plan, it's gonna be in the next comp plan. It's definitely been on the city's radar to make an improvement to this road that we view as a substandard road. It's an old township roadway that the city's now taking part of, and it's part of their municipal state aid system. So there's three items tonight. The first one is a resolution authorizing the submittal to the grant application submittal to MnDOT. The second one is the program that we're actually submitting under, which is the local road improvement program. I won't get into the details of it, because the third one here is probably the most important. This is the cost estimate that we're looking at submitting to MnDOT. The cost that we currently have penciled out is about $1.6 million. Part of the application, we're gonna ask for a $1 million grant from MnDOT, so it's MnDOT funds, grant money, free and clear, don't have to pay back, $1 million, and the city's gonna be responsible for anything above or below that $1 million, so the cost's gonna be a little bit less. It's gonna be less cost incurred by the city. If it's gonna be any more, the city's gonna have to incur those costs. We've done an opinion of probable cause here, so we're honing in on those costs, so that's why we presented that cost tonight. That $600,000 that the city would have to incur, we can use our municipal state aid dollars for that. We currently have about $700,000 in the bank, if you will, and every year that gains about $200,000. So if this project is completed in 2019, we'll have those funds available if the council at a future meeting elects to use those funds on this project. So it's currently what we have proposed tonight. The reason why this is a pretty costly project, I don't know if anybody's ever driven it, but it's an old township gravel road. We have to widen the road slightly. Some of those dips or the coming up over the hills, we're going to have to knock some of those hills down, and then the ditches we're going to have to shape up, so we're just not going to be able to go out there and pave it. There's some strings attached to this money, if you will, to meet the current MnDOT standards, so that's why there's going to be a little bit more work here than just strictly paving the roadway. In addition to that, we do have an acceleration lane on southbound County Road 15. If you ever drive on southbound 15 coming from like the golf course, you come up over another hill before you hit 16th Street, so there's some concern there about sight distance and being able to see a car turning from our 16th Street southbound on County Road 15, so we've added that into the projects that's in this budget here. In addition to that, the Dodge County Board has passed a resolution, or I understand they passed a resolution at the last meeting.
Yes, they told me they passed the resolution.
In support of this application, so Dodge County Board, along with their county engineer, feel this is a good project, what the solicitation calls a route of regional significance, so everybody's on board here, because this is an important route to build. Chief Burgess is gonna write a letter of support, showing or outlining the safety improvements that this project's proposing, so I'm working with him to provide that letter of support. If you pass this resolution, this will authorize myself and staff to move forward with the application to submittal to MnDOT, which is due next Thursday, I believe. And then we'll know early in 2018 if we've been selected or not. It is a competitive selection process. There's 25 million throughout the state that's up for grabs, if you will. But it is pretty competitive, but at the same time, I think we have a pretty good application, so that's why it's before you tonight.
So the process then, so we apply, and they come back and say, we grant you the $1 million. We can still say no at that time, right, if we want to. I don't know if we would, but we could.
We could.
So we need to decide now then, that if this does get approved, we would use municipal state aid funding, or we're gonna look at something, because we wanna know how we're gonna come up with our $600,000 before we're kind of on the line to all of a sudden have to come up with $600,000.
Two things. One, if I feel very strongly that the city's comfortable moving forward with this application, we're comfortable moving forward with our $600,000 in local funds to MnDOT as a good faith to make this application. I don't want to be in a position to go back to MnDOT and say thanks but no thanks for this great opportunity to bring $1 million in state funds to the city. So that'd be my first comment or recommendation to the council. But you're right, we're not bound to that, is my understanding. Secondly, we do not need to declare today where our $600,000 is coming from. It can come from municipal state aid at a future date. This is proposed at the 2019 project, so we got some time to figure it out before we're incurring those costs. So.
it would be awful hard not to come up with 600,000 if they would put up $1 million.
No kidding.
I mean,
No, I just wanna make sure that we're.
Haven't you thought how we're ever gonna be able to do that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if we.
If we can get
And if
the
you s-
majority of it paid.
And if you've sat through any of the comprehensive plan meetings, if you've been to any one meeting, probably the number one or two priority from everybody there is the 16th Street
Yes.
pavement.
I
So,
mean,
It's long
it's
overdue.
ridiculous to think that we wouldn't try everything we could to come up with it
Yes.
at that point, so.
One question, if it were to develop west of, what's your subdivision called out there? If it,
Maston Creek.
if it were to go further west from there, develop, so now that this gets more appealing to buy land develop, which way would the infrastructure go?
Sewer and water, that is? Down to the creek. So we're not looking at making any infrastructure improvements as part of this project, so we can serve it from other areas.
Okay.
Now, with that said, what we are proposing is a rural section with curb and gutter, similar to like a county road. We're not looking at extending the curb and gutter or the trail, from the current extent of the project, so that's not in this budget here. If we start adding curb and gutter and trails, obviously it's gonna increase the cost, and we just didn't think it was fiscally, the time to do that sort of upgrade. That could be a later upgrade. There's a lot of development, kind of west of the river, or we can even develop some easter before we really need to look at the traffic capacity that would drive that improvement into an urban roadway. I mean, that might be 50-plus years down the road, so that's why my recommendation is to make this a rural improvement, rural section to the improvements.
Okay. Any other questions for Brandon on that?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion then,
I'll make that motion
to go forward
to
with
go
the-
forward with the grant application for the local road improvements program for 16th Street Northeast.
Okay, we have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Stand, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Don't come back without it.
She's lying.
You were successful with the last one, so.
Yeah, we'll see.
I guess J.
We added
two,
two, yep.
the Highway 57 letter of interest, which is fantastic
Sure.
news, so.
Yeah, so this is the next step that we talked about, this at previous council meeting, this is the next step for MinDOT, saying that you've been awarded this program, money, from the MinDOT side of things, that they have their money kind of to the table here. This is for improvement from Trunk Highway 57 from Old 14, County Road 34, up to 11th Street, which is the north end of the fairgrounds. Again, it's on Charlie's, list of things to improve, poor water main, poor sanitary sewer, flooding at Main Street, you probably heard it all. This is just a letter of intent, not requesting any action from the council tonight, because we still need to review this letter, this came in today. But we'll have this letter likely in front of you at a later date, after Teresa and I work through MinDOT on some of the verbiage in here and cost. We continue to move down this road with this, MinDOT and this project, it would be a 2021 project, so we have some time before we actually have a backhoe in the ground, but there's some, with any MinDOT project, there's a lot of lead work, environmental work that we gotta get started on, and MinDOT has to get started on, so that's why we're considering it now, so. Happy to answer any questions, again, there's no council action request tonight.
So just a numbers thing, I guess, okay, we got 11 blocks that we're doing here, right? Essentially, or 12, because you're going across from 34.
Yeah, 14, 15 probably.
Okay, 14, 15 blocks. 3.2 million is their share, and we would have anything over that. Any just ballpark of the total cost of the project? It just seems like that would cover the majority,
Well,
wouldn't it?
You'd be surprised.
There's a lot of.
Because we're doing 8 million and we're doing 35 blocks.
But there's a lot of, in existing 35 blocks, we're gonna have curb and gutter, and part of this doesn't. And that would be something that we'd wanna put in there out on the north end, up towards 11th, instead of the waterways in the ditch. If you go,
Yeah, north of 8th Street, just north of like the North Park and that offset intersection, the roadway, you're right, it goes from a urban curb and gutter section to a rural ditch section, albeit the ditches have been pretty much filled in. So we would be looking at
There's some
extending
extra
curb
there,
and
but
gutter,
just ballpark, I mean, are we talking, we're spending $8 million on 35 blocks, is what, in my simple mind, how I'm looking at it, and we got 15 blocks for 3.2, that should cover most of it.
I want to say it was like a
state versus city though.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of
State too,
major
Chris,
roadways,
you know?
so it's gonna be more costly.
Okay.
And there's gonna be state prevailing wages and potential federally prevailing wage, which the contractors pay more to his employees.
Okay.
So it's gonna drive some of the cost up. It's gonna be more engineering, it's gonna be more things to do. There's gonna be some potentially environmental work through that corridor too, so it's gonna drive some of the cost. I had some cost estimates, and I apologize, I don't have them before me tonight. We presented at the last meeting, but when I bring this back at the next meeting, we'll have some of those costs, and that's actually why I don't recommend any council action tonight, because in here, there's some agreement to cost sharing that's actually not attached, MnDOT didn't send it with. So maybe let's just reevaluate before I speculate on
No,
I think the
that's fine.
costs were.
Yep. So-
Probably a third more.
I think the city side was gonna be less than MnDOT.
Right, but I mean about a third more than the 3.2.
A third more.
You're saying another $1 million is what you're saying?
At least.
Yeah, it was more than $1 million on the city side.
Yeah.
But it was still over 50% MnDOT. So we're between a third and 50%.
Okay, no, that's,
I'll
I'm not,
have it,
yeah.
Cause we had a long cost breakdown
Yeah.
on MnDOT, so.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just do
Just
that.
as we're going through our capital
So if we
improvement
just
plan over the year, we can
chew
know-
on 2 to
plug
3
it.
million, I think will be.
I think so too.
We can plug that number in so we know what.
Nice
we're-
thing is we got 3 more years.
Right.
If we.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, is that?
That was
on
it.
that one?
Yep.
Okay, and that's all you have then?
Correct.
Okay, nothing under personnel. L, attorney's report. Number 1, employee evaluations.
There's been some, I think, interest by the council in talking about, employee evaluations and approving those evaluations at council meetings, or having a little bit more exposure to what, the employee evaluations are, instead of essentially approving the supervisor's recommended, increases, step increases. There's been, at least, like I said, there's been interest in having some additional, having the council have some additional exposure to that, for lack of a better word. There's a couple of things that I just wanted to talk about, with regard to doing those employee evaluations in council meetings. There would be, if you're going to evaluate an employee during a council meeting, you have to give them notice, enough advance notice, so they can decide whether or not, typically you would do that in a closed session, but the employee would have the right to open that session up. So you have to give them sufficient and enough notice to make a decision about that, essentially. If it's a closed session, it would be recorded. The recording would have to be saved for 3 years, so, there's some additional housekeeping that would need to be done to preserve those closed, sessions, the recordings from those. And then at the next council meeting, you would have to give a summary, essentially, of, what the conclusions the council reached regarding that evaluation. Some of the pitfalls with that are, private data, with regard to personnel versus what's public. So you would have to be very careful, when you're talking about it at the next open session, that you're not divulging any, private data about those individuals, that you're doing those evaluations of. Because of some of those additional steps that would need to be included, there are some suggestions about how you can have more exposure, to the employees' evaluations without having to have discussions about those, or, have them discussed during a meeting. The council could authorize council members to review the evaluations, so that you could take a look at that, have more information about those evaluations without necessarily having a discussion about the evaluation itself at a meeting. You could have someone, or have council members that were interested review those evaluations, prior to a meeting, and then, an increase could be approved or disapproved at the actual meeting, like you're doing now with the consent agendas, and those things. So, the additional requirements would lengthen your meetings as well. It does create potential for inadvertent disclosure of private information, including, you know, if there's any investigations or disciplinary actions that aren't determined yet to be final, that would be something that would be private. Benefit enrollment information is private, medical records would be private. Otherwise, much of the evaluation is public, but there is that additional concern about potential inadvertent disclosure of private data. So I just wanted to give you some additional things to think about when you're thinking about how to change potentially handling employee evaluations.
Okay, I guess I put that also in my email to have that added to the agenda. And just mainly, from my experience the last 10 months at the library board. So at the library board, you know, the library director does the evaluation of the employee, then when we have the board meeting, we go to closed session, he hands out a copy of the evaluation, and he basically explains, here's the person, why I said or didn't say this, or here's what I recommended, and here's what their feedback was, and we'll do that. And what I recommend, and we approve or disapprove it, and then it comes to council for approval on the consent agenda. And to me, it just seems like, and it's not that you don't trust the supervisors that we have now, but I look at it more as of a tool to hold the supervisors accountable for their evaluation. Cause I've had over, you know, if you, gotta be careful how I say this. You get the evaluations and it's always good, and increase every time. And then the supervisor makes a comment that, boy, if everybody was efficient as X, I wouldn't have to worry about hiring any new people. Well, then the evaluation should reflect that this person isn't necessarily as efficient and should be working on being more efficient or work, you know, whatever that would be. So that was my goal of, are we just questioning, are we doing enough to approve these? Are we getting enough information and doing enough as a council for the oversight to make sure that we're holding everybody accountable who's actually doing the evaluation? And it's not an indictment on any one person. It's a very difficult thing to evaluate an employee and put that in writing and have the conversation, especially in a small town like this where all of our people that are, you know, supervising people, they work together every day. They know each other. It's not like you have 100 people under you and you never see them. You just evaluate them and on they go. So I guess that I'm just wondering, are we doing enough as a council to have enough information to approve all that? So that was my intention of having you explain why. And I understand the private data, the evaluation that the library board uses, there's no private data on the form, and that's all that the board gets. They don't get insurance enrollment or benefits or investigations or that. It's just name, here's these criteria on how the supervisor evaluated them, then the comments, and then their recommendation, and that's what's discussed. So we could control that to a point, and on the evaluation, it's right there where it says the employee signs it, and they check a box, do they want it open or closed, and do they want to be there or not? So, I guess I just entertain, what's your do you have a firm recommendation of, no, we shouldn't do that, or should we appoint a personnel committee that looks at that stuff before to bring it back, or have all of us? Does that make sense to you guys? I mean, I just.
Well, I mean, I brought this up, I don't know, maybe over a year ago, that, you know, I have a tough time just throwing this stuff on the consent agenda. This employee gets this raise, and I haven't seen anything on these evaluations at all. And I had asked about just having it, so it was at least if one of our supervisors evaluates something, that we have the option to at least stop out and take a look at the evaluation, not necessarily that we have to actually have them come in front of the city council, because I don't know if I'd want that myself, you know. I'd rather do it with my supervisor, have then city council be able to look at it, you know, just being able to come out. Obviously, I would hope that the evaluation doesn't include really any personal stuff, which I wouldn't think it would.
Right.
So you would have to worry about, I think Teresa said, about redacting things or whatever. Just a straightforward evaluation, because I feel much more comfortable knowing, like Chris said, though, if we have 15 of the best employees that get raises every year, never get, you know, scolded for anything,
that might make that supervisor doing it, you know, look at him a little bit closer, you know, what's going on, but I know I've said that a long time ago, that I'd like to be able to see these evaluations.
Yeah, I think that that would be a better way to go about it than having them actually discussed at a meeting. That anyone who wanted to take a look at those evaluations, like I said, the council could authorize the, you know, council members to do that prior to a meeting. Stop down at City Hall and take a look at what the evaluation is, so you can, you know, make a more informed decision.
And I think that's, if you go beyond that, if there is an issue that you would need to bring up, you would then go to the city administrator and say, you know, here's something that I would like looked at, go on from there. And then maybe you have to bring them in front of,
Give them the option to have it overclosed or
Right.
whatever they want to do. Okay. So would we need to authorize ourselves to do that by some formal action? Or is it pretty much the council person's right?
as long as it's not
Right.
personal.
Yeah, I thought
Well,
that-
yeah, you could
It's
you
public.
could make that request, it's public data, so.
Sure, okay, so we don't need any action, we just,
No,
Yeah.
okay.
Good idea, though.
Okay.
Good thoughts in there. I went through the same thing you're talking about up the library, and read all of them every time and listened to all, and
It just got me thinking,
Yeah.
oh, this is great information, and it was basically for the benefit of the library director, because then he's, you know, in this case, it's our, you know, he's accountable for his evaluation, and there was a couple times when we came back and said, well, have you taken care of that yet? You said you were going to, and he did, so, it was just, it's just a, I don't know, I guess more transparent thing. So, I guess if we, as we see that on the agenda, as they come up, okay, all right, so we don't need any formal action on that. Thank you for the information, too, appreciate it. Number 3.
Number 2.
Minor subdivision.
I don't have anything prepared for that. I can answer any questions about the minor subdivision. This is regarding the property that was acquired to the west side of the liquor store, I believe.
It was asked of me, whether a minor subdivision was necessary or not, and it was the
Okay.
opinion that it should be. Or
That
it
it
should
should be
be
or
a
should
minor
not be?
subdivision.
No, the question was brought up at planning commission on approving a minor subdivision for city council to approve or recommend approval to city council. Well, the city was the applicant to have a minor subdivision on someone else's property. And it was put out there at planning commission to have the owner ask for the minor subdivision, because basically, like I was saying, is that if I went out to your house and went to the city and said, I wanna have a minor subdivision on your address, split it in half, that's not my right, and we can't, you know, so the city shouldn't be able to do that either. So the owner of that property should be requesting a minor subdivision to split the property so they can sell it legally to another entity.
It's my understanding that a minor subdivision is intended to create buildable lots. So, in my opinion, I don't think that a minor subdivision in that particular instance would have been necessary, cause we're not creating separate buildable lots.
Well, no, we've used a minor subdivision in the past over here, Ruports, they have, straight over here, they had 2 rectangular lots this way, and then behind the house is 2 rectangular lots this way. The 2 in the front owned 2 in the back, and to get the 2, to adjoin each of their properties, we did a minor subdivision to split them and then join them back up to the property. So, but the statement was, is that the city was applying for the minor subdivision for property they didn't own.
Okay.
That's what it was. So basically, a planning commission was to have the owners of the property ask for the minor subdivision. It wasn't that we weren't saying not to use a minor subdivision, just having the owners request it, because it'd be like us stating that we'll approve anybody who comes in here and asks for a minor subdivision on a piece of property. Because we're not the owners of it, how do we split it?
Okay.
But if you're saying it isn't a minor subdivision, then what do we do? What's the I mean, if we don't need to do a minor subdivision, then
They have to have it all platted, right?
Well, they could do a lot, I mean, they can split a lot, as long as the county approves it with a certificate of survey, you can split a lot. As long as you're not, like I said, creating buildable, lots, that you're creating, the city, or the county can approve a lot split, essentially. Using a survey. I'm not sure if I'm, and I can tell by your look on your face, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not.
No, I like to ask what's, the drive behind it, but I'm just saying, it's just, I don't believe that the city should be going to planning commission and asking for a minor subdivision for somebody else's property that they don't own. And granted that the city will own it, and whatever agreement it is of who pays for it, but I don't think we want that set, that we went and got the minor subdivision. Not saying you can't use the minor subdivision to do that. I'm just saying it needs to be the right people doing it. And since I think that we've already kind of invoked the process of buying it because it is got the new pavement down, it's something that needs to be taken care of. Because, I mean, do we own the property? Has it been split?
It has, well, yeah,
How did it get split?
using a certificate of survey,
Who surveyed?
the city engineer.
And that cost was borne by,
I would assume the city.
and approved by,
I don't know the answer to that.
I'd like to know that sometime.
The purchase of the property approved by?
The purchase was approved by council.
Yeah.
Yep.
We talked about that in, both in open and closed sessions.
So no, it was just something simple. I mean, just something simple to do. It's just, I didn't think that the city should be asking for it. Not saying it shouldn't be done, and I think we all, sitting on planning commission, yeah, like I said, it's so simple. It just, they would just need to re-sign the form. It wasn't anything to try to sidestep, go around, do anything, just something that simple. And even Dwayne Burton's like, yeah, that doesn't make sense that the city would ask to split somebody else's property.
It's just a precedent issue.
Right, yeah,
Well,
simple.
If, it could be, I mean, the city could have some kind of a property interest in it with a signed purchase agreement. So I don't know that would be like a fatal flaw to, an application for a minor subdivision. If there's a purchase agreement where the intent of both parties is clear that the city is going to purchase, it could be argued that the city has a
I
property.
wasn't trying to create some
kind
big
of a
argument,
property
just when
interest.
Dwayne and I were talking at planning commission, we didn't think that we wanted to have that set
A precedent set.
of the city doing this. I mean, it was just, like I said, it was supposed to be just simple, and I didn't hear anything back from us, so I talked to the mayor if he had seen anything on it, or if he signed anything for it.
Yeah.
Something just plain and simple.
It was my, opinion that it wasn't needed, because we weren't creating a buildable lot on that property, so I didn't think that the minor subdivision was necessary in that circumstance.
Okay, good. All right. Number 3, attorneys. We're gonna go to closed session. The meeting will be closed under the attorney-client privilege to discuss, 1, the active litigation on the special assessment challenges on 3rd, 4th, and 5th Street project, and 2, threatened litigation on future special assessment challenge on South Manorville Avenue project. So we'll close the meeting and we'll open it back up in a few minutes.